welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm delighted to be bringing you another play interview today, and I'm joined by Danielle Daley. Danielle, how are you? And thanks a lot for joining me on the channel.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. So just to kick things off, going back to the very start, how did you get into playing tennis? And was it a case of you fell in love with the sport instantly, or did it take a little bit of time to get used to playing tennis?
Well, when I was younger, my family have always been interested in tennis, even before I was around, and they introduced me to tennis. And I mean, since I've younger, I always used to run around quite a lot, so it was quite fitting that I was playing tennis, considering you have to cover the court quite well. But yeah, I'd say that I got into tennis through my mum, and then my mum through my grandparents. So it's just sort of been passed down the chain.
Yeah. So following that, you had a very successful junior career before turning pro at 18 years old.
Mm.
How did you find that transition between playing junior events and pro events?
Well, I found when I started traveling, it was a completely different atmosphere, that like whether it was juniors or pro. And I do think that at a time I was mixing in the both. For example, at the beginning of 2018, I played my first pro event in Israel, and then I also played some junior events before that and throughout 2018 as well. I just think that the atmosphere is so different. I mean, as I was saying a few days, like you have to fight a lot more than you do here. You've got to fight for every point. It's not, you can't switch off. You've got to be on it all the time. Because the girls who are out there, I mean, everyone's battling for the same goal. So you've just always got to make sure you're fighting and always switched on.
Yeah, a lot of British players I've spoken to have sort of gone down the academy route or gone to US college tennis and then turned pro 23 or 24 years old. Do you think the fact that you've turned pro so early and had the experience of traveling and competing in pro events at an early stage, do you think that gives you an extra advantage almost?
I think that just being able to travel and play just gives you the experience to be able to keep improving. I feel like the best way to learn is by playing matches. And if you can keep competing, I think you're going to improve, because you can see what you're doing in matches that you need to work on to then come back to training. So I think it's definitely helpful to be playing matches now, and then it will then help me going forwards.
Yeah, there's a lot of junior players watch these interviews, and I can imagine being a junior player now, it's quite a daunting task to think about turning to pro tennis because there's so many different routes. Would you recommend turning pro early? And also, is there any bits of advice that you would give a junior player that's thinking about turning pro?
I think just enjoy the journey, really. I don't think that you should try and let it stress you out. Don't be stressed about it. Just sort of see exactly what your end goal is and which route suits you the best. I think all routes you can, once you work hard and put in the right amount of effort, you can reach whatever goal you've set. So even if you don't want to go pro and you want to go to American uni, then go pro afterwards, I think that's still a good option as well. I think it's just how you're feeling and what you want to do going forwards.
Yeah, so just going back a few months, one of the most uplifting videos I watched during lockdown was your interview for Black History Month that you did with your grandparents and Anne-Marie Batson, where your gran was talking about her book on how to play tennis in Montserrat.
Yeah.
And then going on to watch, Arthur Ashe and Serena Williams and Venus Williams. And we know the Williams sisters have done amazing things, not just for tennis, but also the Black community around the world. And now we have Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff sort of using their stuff at the top that they've got, that prowess that they've got to fight for equality now. How important do you think it is that those players still do that to this day?
I think it's very important just to sort of help those from ethnic backgrounds to push through and realize that there are people at the top as well. I think sometimes, especially what I was learning from my grandparents, that during the Windrush generation, it was a predominantly white sport. And I think it's just nice to see that there are players of color coming through, and that we do also have that skill set and that ability to still get to the top, where Venus, Serena, Osaka, Coco Gauff is on her way up. So
yeah, you mentioned being inspired by the Williams sisters. Does that motivate you to sort of follow in their footsteps and become an inspiring figure yourself as well?
definitely, I think they're definitely my main role models. I just love the athleticism, the change of power that they've brought to the women's game. I mean, I can't remember watching a lot of their matches when I was younger, but I've definitely watched a lot of them as I've gotten older. And I just admire the way that they play, the way they are on the court, off the court. I think it's brilliant.
I agree. So I believe you had shoulder surgery in 2019, and we all know what's happened in 2020. You must be raring to go in 2021 and look to really kickstart your pro career.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, I've got I'm hopefully looking to travel in January and just sort of try and hit the ground running and try and make up for the months that were lost in this year. But I think that this year's been a good year to sit back, reflect, to see what you need to do for next year. Try and sort of use it as positively as possible instead of thinking, oh, I haven't been able to do anything. So I've been training hard right now. It's kind of like pre-season at the moment, getting ready to then go into 2021, and hopefully it'll be a better year.
Yeah, so you went out to Greece with a number of other British players at the end of October.
Yeah.
How nice was that to go and travel again and get back on court?
Oh no, it was brilliant. I always do love traveling. I think for me, tennis is an absolutely wonderful career. The fact that you get to travel and play the sport that you love. I mean, I'd never been to Greece before, and it was a lovely first experience. I think the culture's lovely. Everyone there was so friendly. And tournaments wise, I actually managed to end my last week by qualifying for the main draw, which I haven't done since 2018. So it was a nice way to sort of finish the year. It's not the end goal, but it's a start, and it's looking up for next week, looking upwards for next year.
So looking forward in your pro career, are you hoping to improve your rankings in both singles and doubles, or does one take priority over the other?
No, definitely. I think right now I'm going to look at trying to play both. So definitely try and get singles and doubles, because when you're traveling, it's nice to not have to commit to just one, because say, not to be negative, but for example, if you were to lose first round of qualies in singles, that's on the Sunday, and then you then got to wait until the next Sunday for the next event. So it's good to sort of just keep playing matches, because doubles would then start on maybe like Monday, Tuesday. So just nice to just keep continuous matches going throughout the week.
Yeah, so the main aim of these players' interviews is to entertain British tennis fans and also try and attract new people to the sport. So hopefully by people watching these, they start following players like yourself and supporting your career and attending UK events. But recently I've came up with the idea of giving junior players an opportunity to ask players like yourself questions and get advice. I think in not many sports do junior players get a chance to speak to pro players, and that's something I want to change in tennis. So if there's a junior player struggling with a specific shot or something in training, a diet, nerves on court, then through me, I can ask you questions and sort of give them advice. So would you be happy to answer a few junior questions that I've got?
Yeah, of course.
So the first one is, how did you manage your emotions on court when you were young?
I've never really been quite a negative person when I was on court. I just think that sometimes things can be up and down. When I was younger, I'd say that I probably struggled. I mean, of course, tennis is just a mental sport. But I think that sometimes when you're younger, it can be quite mentally tough, because you just want to get out there and win, and you can get quite down on yourself. But what I've realized definitely along the way is that you've just got to make sure that when you go out on court, you just try your best, because that's all you can do. So that's one thing that I think that I definitely tell myself when I was younger, instead of just worrying about winning or losing.
Yeah, do you have any specific match routines that you go through to ensure that you're in the best place possible on court?
Do you mean pre-match or during pre-match? I've been sort of trying to develop different routines. Like, for example, like I have a good playlist that I listen to before I go on court, try and get my heart rate pumping so that when I step on court, I'm like warm, ready. I think that's just a really good warm up. Just try and get into my own headspace, try and not socialize too much if I can.
What do you do off court to train the mental side?
I do. I read some books. I've got books that I read about like different champion mindsets. I do some. I've started to try and do a bit of visualization, which has been helping, I think, quite a bit. Especially when you're like traveling, just being able to like imagine what you can do on court, so that when you get there, it feels like you already know what to do. I do think that I probably need to pay a bit more attention to my mental side, but I'm starting to develop it more and more as I'm going along.
And finally, what was the biggest change that you made that made you a better player?
again, just telling myself when you go out on court, just do what you know to do in training. Don't try and do anything differently. Just play the way that you know to play. Be positive, be confident, and just go for it.
A final question for me is something I always finish on. What is your dream achievement in tennis?
My dream achievement at the moment is to get my first WTA point. I've been grinding for it for the last few years. It's not going to stop there. I do want to definitely break onto the tour inside the top 100 if I can. But definitely right now, my main goal is to get my first WTA point.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot for joining me. Hopefully we cross paths next year on a UK event or something like that. And, you know, maybe 2025 or 26 before we meet in person, but hopefully someday. But yeah, all the best for Christmas and New Year. And thanks a lot for joining me again.
Thanks. And to you, Dan.